Back in 2013, I used to watch a lot of streams on Twitch. Mostly just League of Legends tournaments, but some streamers as well. I like the interactive aspect of it a lot, but the popular streamers had thousands of people trying to all talk at the same time. It's pretty much just white noise at that point. Sometimes, when I got bored, I would scroll down on the list of channels. There were hundreds of people streaming the game. The people on the first page had thousands of people watching, but the further down you scrolled, the lower viewer numbers. Twitch doesn't actually let you just scroll down to the bottom right away. You have to scroll down to the edge of the page, and only then does it load in the next couple of rows. It's a very painstaking and laborious process, like they're actively trying to stop people from going down too far. And implicit quality management. You start to notice trends at the lower ends, of people trying their best to get out of the dark basement of obscurity. People doing giveaways or in-game challenges, anything out of the ordinary. But the problem is, when everyone is trying to stand out in the same way, no one is. And that's how I found Lizzie. It was several minutes into scrolling down the endless feed of thumbnails, somewhere in the range of 10 to 20 viewers. Between promises of $20 giveaways and the skills of the next LCS player was just a message of, no boys allowed. Yeah, well, I clicked it anyway. I joined at the wrong time. Lizzie was hunched over in her chair, laughing. Just loud, uncontrollable laughter. I had no idea about what. She was just standing AFK in the jungle near Blue Buff. The first time I saw her, her face was red and she had tears in her eyes. She leaned back in her chair and gasped for air. That pretty much summarized Lizzie. She was one of those insufferably happy people who did everything with gusto. In retrospect, I regret not asking what was so funny. I was new to the stream. I didn't know any of the etiquette. None of the 15 other people were talking in chat. I don't know why I kept watching. Over the years, I've peeked into hundreds of different streams. Sometimes you only need 5 seconds to know you absolutely detest someone. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes before you wonder why you even spent that much time in there. But sometimes, things just click. Lizzie had that undefinable set of characteristics that just hit the right spot for me. It also didn't hurt that she was pretty and liked to talk a lot. But what really made her special, in my eyes, was that she was different from the other streamers. About 5 minutes after I tuned in, someone new dropped by the chat, asking why he, as a guy, wasn't allowed. Lizzie banned him. It was just such an absurd thing to do on a platform that's basically all male. It didn't make sense. Much later, after getting to know Lizzie like the sister I always wanted to have, I found out that every week on Tuesday, she worked an 8-hour shift at the cafe with one of her exes. On Wednesday, she banned all boys from her stream. She knew perfectly well that most people were guys, but on that one day of the week, anyone who acted too much like one got banned. At the time, I just thought it was funny, a quirk of her personality. After she finished her game of League, she yawned and announced that the stream was over for the night. She spent another 5 minutes saying goodbye to people in chat, and then the screen went dark. I went back to scrolling down the list of desperation. Tuned into a couple of streams but never stayed for too long. I couldn't stop thinking about Lizzie. Every stream I opened, it was the same old stuff. Gamers yelling loudly, trying to hype up a crowd that just wasn't there, or listening to loud and bad music. At the end of the spectrum, most people didn't even have face cams. The 30-odd minutes I spent watching Lizzie felt so alive compared to the others. I found myself missing her already. After opening and immediately closing the 6th stream, I went back to Lizzie's channel and followed it. By the time I got the email that Lizzie went live, I had almost forgotten about it. She didn't have a streaming schedule then. She just hopped on the computer when she felt like it. Sometimes there were days between streams. Sometimes there were 3 in one day, each only 10 minutes long. It was chaotic, but every time I got a notification that Lizzie went live, it was like a little surprise. It made me happy. I'd stop whatever I was doing and tune in. Sometimes I'd miss the stream because I was at work or sleeping, and I'd watch the VOD. It wasn't the same. After a while, I found myself shaping my own life around the stream. I'd turn down friends because Lizzie mentioned she'd be streaming. I stopped watching movies right in the middle because Lizzie came on. Over the months, and eventually years, we grew into a small, tight-knit community. I was made a moderator at some point, and even when the stream was off, chat was active with a few of the regulars. Very frequently, Lizzie would stay after the stream and we'd just hang out, talking about everything and nothing. I wouldn't even know where to begin if I had to tell you everything I found out about her. She was 25 when she started streaming in early 2013, worked part-time at her aunt's cafe in Minneapolis, and her dream was to become a full-time streamer. She was the youngest of 3 girls. Her father had passed away from cancer when she was 10. Her mother died during an armed robbery at a bank when she was 20. Despite that, she was one of the brightest and most optimistic people I've ever met. In the fall of 2014, Lizzie had to make a choice. The savings from her parents' life insurance were almost gone, and her streaming career wasn't at the point where it paid all of her bills. Her aunt was willing to hire her full-time, but it would be the end of her streaming career. We had an emergency meeting after that heartbreaking stream to discuss her future. Lizzie didn't want to give up on her dream and decided to go for a last-ditch effort. She quit her job at the cafe and tasked the dozen regulars with brainstorming ways to improve the stream. I can only imagine how scary that step must have been, but if there was one person who could do it, it would have been her. The stream changed a lot after that. She had a regular schedule, 6 hours every day. She bought a new webcam, mic, and set up Streamlabs. The rest of us went out and advertised her stream on forums and social media. We stopped screwing around when we played together, and actually focused on the game to help her improve her skills. We also finally abdicated the Wednesday rule. It felt great, and I don't think I've ever seen her happier. Every day that we reached a new viewer record, she nearly broke down in tears. It meant a lot to us all. She was like everyone's younger sister. Back then, it took quite a bit to get partnered with Twitch. You'd have to have at least a couple hundred viewers on average before they considered you. In November, she had her first application rejected. In December, the second one was rejected. On January 14th, she got partnered with Twitch. This was also the first week that she broke the 500 viewer record. I still remember the feeling of elation at hearing the news. Like an enormous weight lifted off my shoulder. It was an incredibly emotional stream, a lot of crying on all ends. I was the 3rd person to officially subscribe to her stream. I gladly would have paid 10 times that. It was a double-edged sword. I loved seeing her happy, but the stream wasn't really the same anymore. It had grown to fit the mold of all the other channels. There's a certain number of people at which Twitch chat turns into a completely useless mess. I've found that to be around the 150 people mark. It didn't matter how many mods we had, there was no way to hold back the inevitable meme and emote spam. In the early days, if I ever missed a stream, I'd go back and watch the VOD. But that wasn't really possible anymore. There just wasn't enough time in the day. Nevertheless, being with Lizzie consumed the lion's share of my spare time. I didn't even like League that much anymore, but I still found myself playing it when she had subscriber games. In September, Lizzie told us that she reached a point where she was financially stable. Between subscribers, donations, and the occasional sponsor deal, she made enough money to live on. That's when she pitched the idea of a meetup. She wanted to meet all of us and celebrate. The details were murky, but she wanted it to be on a weekend in Las Vegas. A small venue if enough people RSVP'd, otherwise we could just hang out on the strip. I didn't think about it twice. The moment I found out the date, November 15th, I booked a ticket. Boston to Las Vegas, just the weekend. Meeting Lizzie would be incredible. All the other regulars were on board too. Just like that, my enthusiasm for everything Lizzie was renewed. I watched every second of every stream, catching up in the VODs if I had to. I climbed from silver to gold so I could play ranked with her. I watched chat like a hawk, banning anyone who talked smack. Everyone was excited about LIZZY'Con. People planned to travel from all over the world. The furthest I heard about was one of my fellow mods, who was working as a contractor in Iraq. Under different circumstances, I might have been apprehensive, but at that point, I've watched Lizzie's stream for longer than any of my serious relationships lasted. I had friends that I talked to on a daily basis, but didn't even know what they looked like. These people were my friends. On Tuesday, November 11th, 5 days before LizzyCon, I came home after work and turned into the stream. It was like being punched in the stomach. Hard. The thing on the screen was not Lizzie. It looked like her. It sounded like her. It moved like her. But every fiber of my being screamed that it wasn't Lizzie. I was dumbfounded. It was in the middle of a game of League, talking about LizzyCon. I turned off the stream, trying my best to bite back nausea, a visceral feeling of sickness. I fled my apartment in a need to breathe fresh air. I had no idea what the hell happened. My first thought was that I ate something bad or that I got a cold, maybe a fever that made me delirious. Watching big flakes of snowfall and sucking in the cold November air, I calmed down again somewhat. Enough to go back in anyway. Just touching the mouse again made my pulse race. I did not want to open the stream. For the first time since Lizzie started streaming, I was having doubts about opening it. I wish I hadn't opened it. I wish I could have just walked away, forget about Lizzie. But she was too important to me, and I was convinced that it was nothing. Bracing myself to see it on the screen didn't make it any better. If anything, it made it worse. The revulsion stabbed my abdomen like a dagger, pushing in all the way to the hilt and twisting it. Something was wrong, seriously wrong. I forced myself to sit down and watch, though I wanted nothing more than to run and hide. It acted just like Lizzie. No, it didn't act just like her, it was exactly like her. A perfect replica. Too perfect. Every motion, every word completely devoid of life. No originality. Its laughter sent shivers down my spine. Sweat ran down my forehead. I checked my temperature. Nothing. I whispered one of the other mods if he noticed anything amiss. No dice. I loaded an old VOD. Lizzie's real voice was like soothing balm on my open wounds. I barely slept a wink that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. Those dead eyes, staring out of the shell of a person I loved. Every day of that week was torture. I woke up feeling like garbage and went to bed feeling like death. I checked in on the stream frequently, hoping that the madness was over. It only got worse. There was only one thing it seemed to talk about: LizzyCon. It was the only thing anyone in the chat was talking about. On Wednesday, the viewer count peaked at 2,000. On Thursday, it was 5,000. Despite that, there was barely any spam. On Friday, over 18,000 people tuned into the stream. It was madness. Where did they all come from? Was it doing that? My plane departed at 8:14 p.m. from Logan International Airport, on schedule but one passenger short. I spent the evening paralyzed in fear, reading the assurances of thousands of people that they were going to show up at LizzyCon. People chatted from airports and buses, from cars and trains. I've never felt so helpless. On Saturday, the stream stayed off. I couldn't stop thinking about LizzyCon. Part of me was relieved I didn't go. Part of me desperately missed Lizzie. I checked Twitch chat. Nothing. I checked social media. Nothing. I checked local Nevada news. Nothing. I spent the entire day scouring the internet for even a hint of what was happening. There was nothing. 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 Lizzie's stream never turned on again. I waited for it all day. Sunday. Monday. The entire week. I messaged all the other regulars. Nobody responded. I tried calling them. Nobody picked up. I asked around in other streams. Nobody had ever heard of Lizzie. I started doubting my own sanity, if any of it had been real. I had proof, though. The VODs were still up. Until they weren't. 3 days after LizzyCon, her Twitch account was disabled. Not banned or shut down. Disabled. It's been over 3 years now, and I still think about Lizzie every day. It's like losing a friend, a sister, a cornerstone of my life. David of Wisconsin, I never liked you too much, but you were a good mod. You were the first person to subscribe to Lizzie's channel, and I don't even know how many thousands you donated over the years. If you're still out there somewhere, please contact me. Mike of Toronto, I still have the cup you sent me. I know you existed. Wherever you are now, know that I think about you every time I take a sip from it. Bedbug, you've been there for every stream, even if you never talk much. I'm sorry that it's too late to get to know you. Kale of Nevada, I enjoyed listening to your stories of your job in Iraq. It's hard to imagine that you survived an explosion in the Middle East, only to disappear near your own home. Sven of Norway, I was so proud of you when you earned your PhD. We all were. You had such a bright future ahead of you. I'm sorry that you can't enjoy it. Carter of Florida, I talked to your sister. She misses you. She survived the operation. It's a girl. I wished you could meet your niece. Everyone else? I'm trying my best to remember every one of you. I wrote down all the names I could remember on a sheet of paper, but I know for sure I missed a few people. I wish I had done more. I wish I had done anything. And lastly, Lizzie. I miss you. I miss you so much it hurts. I wish I knew what happened to you. There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about you. Every time my phone lights up with a notification, my stomach drops, and I hope it's your stream coming back online. Every time, I feel the same disappointment. Even if nobody else in the world knows who you are, I will remember you and the joy you've brought to so many people.